Yeah, forgive me. I'm just not looking over these again, and some of these are definitely fake, but yeah, it's still a mix of real ones and all that, but still enjoy. And yeah, first story. Am I overreacting? Since 2022, I've had this constant feeling that my stepdad was watching me, and growing up, he often invaded my privacy, like coming into my room while I was changing without knocking. It got to the point where I would go to his room and he'd be lying on his bed in just his underwear or sometimes nothing else on. And there were times I had to go in there to clean the toilet and he would still be there half naked. I eventually started wearing baggy clothes because I felt like he was watching my body and it made me feel uncomfortable. And even giving him a hug felt weird. Sometimes he would even call me into his room while he was undressing. Because I'm close to my cousin, I've told him over the years how I felt about it and I would cry to him. But he brushed it off and never advised me to tell my mom, even though me and my mom aren't close. And I feel like he still should have encouraged me. It got so bad that I became paranoid, and I only wore baggy clothes that didn't show any part of my body. Am I overreacting? Ho ho ho. No, no, you are not overreacting. This is honestly crazy to me. I don't like, y'all need to understand. I record these while I'm reading it, so this is my genuine reaction. This is crazy. This is actually insane. Like, it just sickens me that there's people like this. Oh my gosh. Next story. The one walk home I'll never forget. I'm 22 now, but there's this memory from elementary school that still makes me laugh every time I think about it. Back then, my friend and I had the same drop off point. One day, we were just chatting and laughing like usual when suddenly her napkin fell on the ground. I completely lost it. I was laughing so hard and she was laughing too, but her face also looked super worried at the same time. Deep down, I couldn't stop finding it funny, even though I knew it was kind of a serious situation. When we got on the ride, everything went quiet. No laughing anymore, just awkward silence. Then she got off first, and that's when I noticed it. She had period stains. I panicked so bad. I was still a kid, so I had no idea what to do. My first instinct was to grab some paper from my bag and try to clean it, but that just made it worse and spread the stain even more. To make things even more unfortunate, the paper I used was actually my output for one of our subjects. I honestly didn't know what to feel at that moment. I was worried, embarrassed, stressed, and somehow still holding back laughter inside. Now that I'm older, thinking about it just cracks me up. I still laugh every time I remember that day. I hope wherever that friend is now, she's doing well. We drifted apart in high school since she transferred to another school. But yeah, that memory definitely stayed with me. Funny how some moments are stressful when you're a kid, then turn into something you laugh at years later. The last bus home, things come and go. The last bus arrived every night at 11:30 p.m., whether anyone was waiting or not. Most nights, only two people boarded, a woman who worked late at the hospital and a man who always carried the same worn backpack. They never spoke. They sat on opposite sides of the bus, staring out the windows as the city slowly emptied. The driver knew the route well. He had driven it for years, long enough to recognize patterns in strangers' lives without knowing their names. One night, the man with the backpack didn't show up. The woman glanced at the empty seat where he usually sat. She looked again at the next stop, then the next, as if expecting him to appear. He never did. Days passed. The bus continued its route. The city lights blurred past the windows the same way they always had. Then, one evening, the man boarded again. He sat in his usual seat and placed the backpack on the floor between his feet. Nothing about him looked different. As the bus reached the final stop, he stood up and nodded at the driver before leaving the backpack behind. The driver picked it up, expecting to find something important inside. Instead, it was empty. The bus pulled away on schedule, just as it always did. The same receipt every morning. Every morning at 7:42, I stop at the same cafe on my way to work. I order the same thing, a small coffee, no sugar. The place is quiet at that hour. Mostly regulars who don't talk much. The kind of routine that makes days blur together. That's why I noticed the receipt. The first time I thought it was nothing. The total was correct. The date was correct, but the order number was 0381. I didn't think much of it until the next morning. Same coffee, same time, same order number. I asked the barista if the machine was broken. She smiled politely and said no. New paper, new ink, everything normal. On the third day, I paid attention to the people before me. Different customers, different orders. Their receipts had different numbers. Mine was still 0381. I kept them. After a week, I had 7 identical receipts, each with a different date but the same number. I showed them to the manager. He frowned, checked the system, and told me there was no issue logged under that number. Maybe you're picking up the wrong receipt, he suggested. I wasn't. The cafe became uncomfortable after that. Not threatening, just slightly off. The barista would pause before handing me my coffee, like she was waiting for something. Once, she almost said my name, then stopped herself. On the 10th day, I didn't go. At 7:42, my phone buzzed with a notification from my bank. A charge from the cafe. Small coffee, no sugar. Order number 0381. The next morning, I went back. The cafe was closed. The windows were papered over. A sign taped to the door. Closed for renovation. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at my reflection in the glass. Later that day, I called my bank. They confirmed the charge, but couldn't explain how it went through. No location data, no terminal ID. That night, I checked the receipts again. There was something I hadn't noticed before. At the bottom, beneath the legal text, a faint line of print, so light it almost blended into the paper. Thank you for your consistency. I don't go to cafes anymore, but every now and then, at exactly 7:42 a.m., I get a notification for a small coffee I didn't buy. Always the same order, always the same number. Socks. My mom lives in a long-term care facility due to her physical limitations and memory issues. They take good care of her and the other residents, including a calendar full of activities designed for this specific population. One of those activities is sock sorting. My mom wanted to do this one, but not at 10 a.m., when it was scheduled for. Instead, I was able to borrow the 6 pairs of socks from the activities department. I brought them to her. She folded them, all the while complaining that the staff was too lazy to do it themselves. When she finished, she asked, "Is that all?" I unfolded the pairs of socks and handed them back to her. She stared at me and said, "I just did those. Why did you pull them apart?" She did not care for my explanation of it being an activity instead of a job. "I have lots of socks," I said. "I'll bring them to you tomorrow." The next morning, I took 40 pairs of socks out of my top drawer. I pulled them apart from one another and tossed them like a salad in the laundry basket. I put them in a large blue bag and drove to Mom's place. She looked so happy when I showed her what I brought. I explained that I could stay for only a short time on that day. She cleared space on her table and bed to make room for the pile. As she started to match and pair socks, I grabbed a clear bag for her to put them in. I thought if she could see them, she would remember what she had done. As you can guess, gentle reader, she did not. Within a few hours of completing her challenge, and after I had left for a day, a CNA asked her about the bag on her bed. "Do you remember one of the reasons she lives in long-term care?" She told the CNA, "I have no idea. Get rid of it." And the CNA did. She took my 40 pairs of white athletic, wool hiking, and other unlabeled socks down to the facility's laundry. I've talked to the receptionist, 2 CNAs, and the nurse manager. No one knows where any of my socks are. I even snuck into the laundry room after hours to look with my own 2 eyes. I opened the doors, lifted piles, and moved bins to no avail. Now, when I visit my mom, I find myself looking at the residents' feet. One day, there was a game of bingo in the dining room that I went over to watch for a few minutes. No one was wearing my socks. I have yet to see a pair of my socks in use. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't take the socks off of a resident's foot if I were to see a pair. I would like to know who received which pairs. Perhaps, when I do recognize my socks on a resident, it'll be the reason I talked to someone new to me at the facility. The woman who paid my fare and never looked back. In 2016, I almost quit school because of transport money. I lived far away from campus. Every day meant calculating fares, skipping meals, or walking long distances when I came up short. I never told anyone. I just kept showing up, tired and quiet, hoping things would somehow work out. One morning, I boarded a bus knowing I was short by a small amount. I planned to explain to the conductor, maybe get shouted at, maybe kicked off. That had happened before. When it was my turn to pay, I handed over what I had and looked down. I was already preparing my excuse. Before I could speak, a woman sitting near the window leaned forward and dropped the balance into the conductor's hand. She didn't smile. She didn't look at me. She didn't say a word. The bus moved on. I sat there frozen, embarrassed and relieved at the same time. I wanted to say thank you, but I didn't know how. It felt like if I spoke, the moment would break. She got off 3 stops later. Still no eye contact, still no words. That fare wasn't much. But that day, it meant I made it to class. I wrote a test. I passed it. I stayed in school. Life is better now. Not perfect, but better. I still take buses, and sometimes, when I see someone counting coins with the same tight look on their face, I quietly cover the rest. I never say anything, because I learned that sometimes help isn't meant to be a conversation. Sometimes it's just meant to be enough. I didn't catch my boyfriend cheating. I found out I was being slowly replaced. I didn't catch him cheating in some dramatic way. No lipstick, no hotel receipts, nothing like that. We were just on the couch late at night. He fell asleep first. His phone was on the table and it kept vibrating, which was honestly just annoying. I picked it up to mute it. That's when I saw the message preview, "Can you still come over tomorrow? I miss you." From contact saved as A. The phone unlocked with Face ID before I even thought about it. I didn't even want to scroll, but I did. They'd been talking almost every day for close to a year. Not sexting, just emotional stuff. Long messages, inside jokes, venting, checking in. About life, about stress, about me. I put the phone back and pretended everything was normal. The next day, I searched my own name in his messages. Turns out I was the stable one. The real relationship. She was the one who understood him. That night I asked him who she was. "She's just a friend," he said. I asked how'd he feel if I did the same with another guy. He said I was being dramatic. I didn't want to fight. I didn't yell. I just left a few days later. He still texts sometimes saying he never actually cheated. Maybe not. But I know what it feels like to slowly be replaced. I tried to act normal and immediately failed. I once waved back at someone who wasn't waving at me. That alone would have been survivable. But instead of realizing my mistake and stopping like a normal person, I committed. I smiled. I waved again. I even nodded, like, "Yes? Hello?" We are both humans who know each other. The person walked closer. Turns out they were waving at someone directly behind me. Someone they actually knew. Someone who was now watching me enthusiastically greet a stranger for no reason. At this point, I had 2 options. Stop and accept the embarrassment, or pretend this was intentional. I chose chaos. I turned around and waved at the person behind me too, like I was some sort of overly friendly neighborhood ambassador. Then I laughed awkwardly and walked away faster than necessary. I still think about this moment sometimes. Not because it mattered, but because my brain truly believed doubling down was the correct choice. It wasn't. The longest joke on Mount Everest. A group of men decided to climb Mount Everest. One of them stutters. They packed their gear and started climbing, joking and laughing together. Halfway up, the guy with the stutter kept saying, "T, t, 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 t." It's clear that he's trying to say something. So everyone listens patiently all the way to the summit. At the top, he finally says, "T, t, 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 tent was forgotten. It's freezing," so they head back down. Before they are even halfway down, he starts again. I'm sorry, I'm trying to, I'm trying not to laugh. Wait, I'm sorry. Before they're even halfway down, he starts again. J, 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 j. Once again, everyone waits until they reach the bottom. He stands up straight. takes a deep breath, and says, j- 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 just kidding. Can't forget the laughing emoji. And yeah. I betrayed myself to stay in a relationship and I regret it. I was asking myself, what the heck am I doing? But still couldn't go. It happened 1 year ago and it was unexpected. It felt like my space, my life, had been invaded, and I slowly lost control without realizing how. My heart felt heavy every morning when I woke up. My energy was draining day after day. It reached a point where every conversation left me mentally disturbed, like something inside me was constantly being pulled out of alignment. Because I was so afraid of hurting someone else, I ended up hurting myself. Every time I picked up the phone, every time I stayed longer than I should have, I ended the relationship the moment I realized I was apologizing for having goals, apologizing for wanting to grow. And I was so angry at myself because I didn't listen early when I got the feeling that this wasn't my way. At that point, do you realize the voice was right all along? I really messed up at work. So, I work in logistics. Kind of. On Wednesday, January 14th, I got to work around 8:30 a.m. Per usual, the first thing I do is pull up my emails. This morning was my second week in my new position sorting numbers for shipping rates. To be honest, I feel like I was promoted rather quickly and I hadn't known everything about the gig. The first email in my inbox I see has a subject line that reads, Final shipping rates legally binding. I touched it. I noticed a number that looked wrong, a decimal point. I remember studying supply chain in college, so I decided to take a look and do my own analysis. I moved the decimal one spot. Shipping cost went from $4.75 per unit to $0. Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, what? Um, uh, Shipping cost went from $4.75 per unit to $0, $4.75 per unit. Oh my gosh. Wait, I leaned back and thought, wow, I just saved the company a ton of money. Then I clicked apply to all regions. I'm sorry. Um, Within minutes, the system updated prices everywhere. Customers saw it. Contracts locked it in. One customer immediately ordered 30,000 units at the new price. The company lost about $387,000 before launch. The worst part is it took about 4 hours for someone to notice, and the person who noticed was pretty important. Meanwhile, after lunch, I was in a meeting. A peer was leading, ironically, a seminar on cost saving initiatives. Anyways, long story short, the damn CFO burst in and asked, Why are we paying customers to ship our own effing product? No one spoke. At this point, I kind of froze. I cracked and just said, Sir, in my 4 years of studying supply chain, I learned that just fractions of cost can save a company millions of dollars. I've never seen someone get red, and I've never heard someone yell louder. I blacked out. I can't recall a thing, he said. All I know is late that afternoon, I was basically walked out of the office by HR. It sucks, but that's life. The job search has been quite rough, but I will keep y'all updated. I feel so sorry for this person, but honestly, one mistake can easily put you back at rock bottom. I'm telling you. I really hope this person figures out how to get another job. But yeah, that's crazy. Next story. I have always cared a lot more about my online friends than those I met in person. For some context before I begin, I would like to say that I am a child of immigrants, and as such, my English has always been subpar. Because of this, and the fact I live in America, I struggled to make friends and communicate as a child, which heavily affected my social skills. So what was my solution? Well, for my 10-year-old self, the only thing that would stand by me was the internet, and that is where I primarily interacted socially. I remember playing a 2D sandbox MMO game, and through it, I met a wide variety of people who I considered my best friends. They taught me English and talked to me when no one else did. I grew heavily reliant on them. all the way to high school as my primary source of social interaction. They were, of course, not the only people I made friends with. My English had long ago developed to the point where I could say it reached an adequate level of proficiency, and through that, I was able to make a wide-ranging group of acquaintances and friends from my school. Yet, no matter how close I considered these friends from school, I never truly cared where they ended up after I graduated. In fact, I don't think I would have cared if they all randomly disappeared from my life one day when I was still attending. As long as I had my online friends, it didn't matter. The thing is, they seemed to care about me, at least somewhat. They sometimes wondered what I was up to and how I was doing. One of them really wanted to meet up after all these years had passed. I felt awful when I realized just how close some of them considered me, and how I didn't even bother thinking about them when all was said and done. It is quite jarring how one can place such high importance on another only for the recipient of such attention and care to respond with complete disregard. It has been a while since I met with any of my in-person friends. I have also stopped talking to my online ones. As of now, I am quite alone. I sometimes feel a hit of regret, isolation, and sadness, but it passes quite often. Today, however, it seems I cannot ignore those feelings, which is why I am writing this to reflect upon them. That was crazy. Uh, that's insane. That is pretty depressing. Anyways, one more and I'm gonna call it there. I think me and my friend are the worst diners ever. Okay, for context, me and my friend were out to eat at this nice restaurant down the street from my house. We got there. Place was very nice and got seated instantly. Stuff started going horribly wrong for us instantly. First off, we dropped our salsa for our chips and dip on the table the second we got it. Once our main meal came, my friend took a sip of her Mexican Coke and laughed too hard it came out her nose. Then, me, with my very high schooler brain, I saw someone getting a beefsteak, and I really said out loud, "The biggest beefsteak!" and got so many side eyes. So, okay, wait. So, I basically never want to go back there again with my friend. Okay, wait. So who's the problem? I don't know. I wouldn't blame it on my friend. I would say it's a mutual thing. It's like they acknowledged that it was a mutual thing in the title, but completely switched up at the end of the story. As long as they're doing it together. That's it for today. I really hoped you guys enjoyed, and trust me, I have only been trying to do my best when it comes to making these videos. So I would appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, and comment down below what your favorite part was. And yeah, I hope to see y'all next time. Peace.